Just so it's clear I'm not faking it this time. You know what else I'm not faking? How bad I am at opening wine bottles. So do y'all remember Heroes?
Do you ever get the feeling like you were meant to do something extraordinary?
Heroes. Do you remember Heroes? I barely do. Welcome back to Drunken Retellings, the show where I tell you guys the plots of things I barely remember while getting drunk. Heroes was a show back in the mid-2000s. I am not allowed to look up the date of when, so I'm just gonna say 2002, made by NBC. It kind of pioneered this idea of having like a whole bunch of protagonists, and specifically of them all being of it being a fairly diverse group of people, utterly disconnected except for like one thing that they have in common. But Heroes was, and is kind of in the cultural collective consciousness, like this kind of small thing. But I feel like a lot has been taken from it. The hero model inspired a whole lot of shows that are very, very popular now. Things like Sense8, things like Orphan Black, things like The Expanse, things like Game of Thrones. The ensemble show as it exists now is actually a fairly modern invention of television. Back in the day, an ensemble show looked something more like Star Trek. You'd have a whole bunch of different characters all unified by one common goal or one common interest. Say they're all in a police squad, or they're all members of Starfleet. Things like Grey's Anatomy. Even more traditional kind of family sitcoms like Roseanne or Full House. They would have storylines of their own, but like the overarching storyline was all one storyline. Maybe you'd get a storyline dedicated to one character one week and another character another, but for the most part, the unit, be it a family or baseball team, they would all be dedicated to kind of one common storyline that they would all go through together. To the point where even like individual episodes would be a cohesive part of that storyline. It wouldn't be like a whole bunch of different threads all eventually converging into one. The ensemble show of today is very different. A lot of the time you'll have lots and lots of different characters all doing very wildly different things, and their storylines will only interconnect at very specific points. Your Game of Thrones, your Sense8s. And Heroes was kind of the show that did it first. So let's do this. I'm through my first glass of wine. Let's see what I can even fucking remember of the plot of Heroes. So a personal background, I really liked Heroes when it came out. I was a huge fan of Heroes season 1. It was the first show I ever binged. It was also the first show where I remember getting really invested in the private life of the actors. I got really into Masioka. Really sure he was gonna blow up, and then unfortunately racism against Asian Americans continued to be a thing. But at the time, Heroes like blew my fucking mind. It was incredibly narratively complex. There were so many characters and they all had pretty well-defined personalities and things going on in their lives, and they were all relevant to each other in weird and sometimes unpredictable ways. That was really exciting for me, both as a viewer and a writer. I'm not sure Heroes has aged really well. Like, for what it is, it's great. It has a lot of problems. Like, the more I remember about it, the more I'm like, I was into that. There was like this whole controversy. So like, up front, if you've never seen Heroes, 2 of the characters in season 1, which is the only season worth talking about, are Japanese. One of them, I believe, is played by a Korean American man. The guy who plays Ando, I'm pretty sure. I will leave this in here even if I'm wrong, and I will fact check myself on the screen right here. I believe the guy who plays Ando is not Japanese. Masioka is, and the guy who plays his dad is George Takei. And the Japanese in the show is not good. I don't know what the process was for writing the Japanese lines that the actors said, but it wasn't good, which a lot of people called out at the time. I do remember that being a thing. Also, I would be remiss if I did not put an asterisk next to George Takei's name. Yeah, alleged sex offender George Takei is in this show. George, We hardly know you. Who else is in this show? Oh, Spock! Spock is in this show. This was one of, what is his name? He was the guy who like kind of got promoted to international stardom from this. Oh my god, what is his name? What is his name?
Let me hear you say it. Tell me your name. Say it. I want to hear you say it.
Sylar. What is the cast? Okay, so the cast is Quinto, who is kind of the main character. There's not really a main character in Heroes, but there is a titular character who is Quinto.
My name is Hiro Nakamura.
Quinto is a young businessman in Japan, deeply unsatisfied with his life. His best friend is Ando. Who else? Mohinder, who is one of the most beautiful men on planet Earth.
Hello.
There's Claire, the cheerleader, who I loved.
I love you, Claire Bear.
There is Matt, the policeman. Greg.
Don't worry about it, man. Not everybody's a test taker.
There is, oh, the actress's name is Allie. Nick, I think, who is, has a split personality and is a single mom working as a cam girl to make ends meet. Good for her. She's married to somebody. Her son is Micah. I do remember that.
Dad needs your help!
There is the junkie guy. There's Sylar. And I swear there are more people, but I cannot remember them. I might be remembering season 2. So there's this huge cast who are all connected pretty much by one thing, which is the majority of them, have superpowers. Oh my god, I forgot 2 of the white people. The 2 other white guys, I forgot them.
I think I can fly.
Nathan and the actor's name. I remember actors' names except for Spock's. Oh man, I wonder if he got the gig in Star Trek partially because he knew George Takei. Huh, maybe. I don't know. I should look that up. Eve! Oh, there's Eve. There is Noah, who is Claire's dad and is part of an organization that like hunts down people with superpowers. Nathan, who's a politician, and his brother, whose name I can't remember. I think it's not Milo. Is it? I don't know. His name's Milo now. And then there's Greg, or Matt, the cop. Greg Matt, like a laundromat for Greg's. And that's kind of the core cast as far as I can remember. For being a diverse cast, this cast is really white. It was pretty diverse for the time, but it's mostly men. It's mostly white men. It's got 2 women, one of whom is constantly damseled in spite of the fact that she's fucking baller as hell. And the other of whom is basically like completely out of control of her powers. And she's like, I think the only person like for whom this is truly the case. Like there are lots of people in this cast who struggle with their powers, but nobody is as truly out of control as Nikki is, where like she doesn't like know how to, she has no idea how to use them and she's like totally out of control, and we'll get there. Now I'm only going to be talking about season 1 because season 2 is really bad. So basically season 1 happens and it's kind of spectacular. It's kind of a cultural phenomenon, and then the writer's strikes of the early 2000s happen and the rest of the show goes completely to shit. Take into account, I was an avid watcher of Heroes. Like I had binged the first season like 2 or 3 times. I could not watch season 2. It was unwatchable. It was so bad. But season 1 was rockin'. Maybe less so now that I'm remembering it. But like at the time, it was really cool. I forgot the junkie in my cast rattle off. He dies in the middle of the season, which is why I forgot him. Is there somebody with him? There is, right? I'm definitely forgetting somebody and I don't know who it is. Hey y'all, Shiva from the future here. The character that I am consistently forgetting is Simone, and this was a oversight so egregious I felt like I had to come back and correct it. Simone is the only character of the main cast of Original Heroes who dies. She's also the only woman of color in the entire original cast. I don't know how I forgot her. It's probably because she gets fridged halfway through the season. That's who I keep forgetting. The rest of the things I get incorrect, I will go back and correct with little fun facts, but this one was so big that I felt like I needed to come back and correct it in person. The person I'm forgetting is Simone, the only woman of color in the entire original cast who got fridged halfway through season 1. I'm a lot more angry about that now than I was back then, but I was pretty angry about it back then too. They're all connected by like this one thing that they have in common, which is that they are all developing superpowers. Quinto can stop time. He can stop and manipulate time. Greg Matt is an empath and can, I think, hear other people's thoughts.
Who wants to be a detective anyway? You gotta spend half your salary buying suits.
Nikki is, I think she has super strength. But she also has TV psychosis, which is nothing like real psychosis, where she has like a TV split personality, which is nothing like actual personality disorders.
This should be fun.
She doesn't use her powers consciously. She only uses her powers unconsciously. The long and short of it is she has super strength. Claire, the cheerleader, has regenerative abilities, like amazing regenerative abilities. Like she's like really like, she's nigh unkillable.
Keeping us safe.
I have busted like every bone in my body, and I don't have a scratch on me.
Nikki's husband has the ability to phase through walls. Who am I forgetting? Oh yeah, Sylar! And Nathan, who I forgot again. Okay, so Nathan can fly and Milo can absorb, he can basically, like he's basically like a sponge. He basically like, through sustained contact with others, he can like temporarily absorb and replicate their powers. Sylar is very much the same way. Sylar is the main antagonist of the show, and I have to look at, okay, I have to know the, hold on. Zach Quinto! I didn't look it up. I just leaned towards my phone and it came to me as though from God herself. So Zach Quinto plays Sylar, and Sylar is probably one of the fucking scariest TV villains ever in season 1.
You wanna see it again?
He is the son or apprentice of a watchmaker, and his power is that if he opens up your skull, he can tinker around in your brain and learn your superpower and steal it from you.
You've seen what happened to the father. Frozen solid, skull sawed off.
So like, I promise it sounds super hokey. It's really fucking scary in season 1. It gets really hokey over time because it turns out that if you don't know how to write that, you write it poorly. Like in season 1, Sylar is scary as hell.
Survive or perish.
You can't stop the boogeyman. He sees into your soul and then eats your brain.
I haven't mentioned Mohinder and Ando because they don't have powers. Mohinder is the son of a scientist who was basically like, this was like his life's research, was like learning about this condition, and like he wrote like a whole book on it, and he was like convinced that like this was happening, and Mohinder did not believe him. And neither did anyone else. Dr. Suresh's hypothesis was that people were evolving basically past humanity. Their adrenaline reflex would trigger these like superpowers, which as a world concept is kind of kick-ass. The story starts pretty innocently with like everybody kind of learning that they have these powers. It starts with Hiro. He is the son of the CEO of like this huge Japanese corporate conglomerate, is, you know, super disenchanted with his life, is extremely average in every way. He's a little chubby, he's got a very round, like frown face, like he wears these big thick glasses, kind of a nerd. His daddy gave him this job that he hates, which sounds really spoiled, but Masaoka has the cherubic face of an Italian Renaissance painting, so he gets away with it. Hiro's cute as fuck. One morning, he manages to like stop time. In a lot of superhero stories, they like have people like keep this a secret. But Hiro, in the most relatable fucking moment ever, immediately goes to his best friend and is like, I can control time. I'm amazing.
それを君と俺が阻止するんだよ。
And like, you know, it uses this power in very, very innocent ways at first, just to like make time go faster. Like he hates his job, so he like sits there and makes the time go faster. God, I wish that were me. Mohinder, the son of Dr. Suresh, his father dies. He is going through his research and, you know, basically just trying to make peace with the fact that he thinks his father was a lunatic. And the more he reads, like the kind of the deeper in he gets, like the more invested he becomes. So it kind of begs the question of like, if he just read like some of his, if like he peer reviewed some of his father's work, like would that distance between them have instantly evaporated because he would have been like, oh, actually this seems really reasonable. So Dr. Suresh was murdered by one of his students, I think. So Mohinder is obviously, you know, really distraught. They like, you know, weren't close because Mohinder thought he was fucking bananas. So he's like going through his father's stuff and he meets his assistant, evilly convinces him to like take up his father's work, which was to find these people. I think he was murdered by Sylar because Sylar is also looking for these people so that he can steal their superpowers. So the whole first season is this contest to find these people, basically to find them first. Sylar is like constantly on this quest to like basically like get every fucking superpower in the world, using information that he stole from Mohinder's dad to like track them down.
You were right, Mom. I am meant to be special just like you wanted.
And Mohinder is using the same information to try and get there first. Everybody in the very beginning is just kind of like learning their powers and like, you know, getting introduced via these powers. Nikki, like, something happens to her when she's doing a cam show. She blacks out, and when she comes to, she's like ripped a man in half, I think. I don't remember Nikki's storyline very well, please forgive me. Claire has figured out that she is functionally immortal and is doing the most badass thing that you could possibly do upon figuring out that you can heal from anything, which is like jumping off of buildings and running through fire. She is having the most fun just being the grossest. Greg Matt is basically being like super overwhelmed by his powers. He's really good at negotiations because he can fucking hear people's thoughts. But at the same time, he can fucking hear people's thoughts, and as a cop in television, I should say, he's routinely surrounded by like some of the worst people on planet Earth and can read their thoughts as they're thinking fucking horrible things, which is leading him to be super depressed. Nathan is a politician. Nathan is super withdrawn in general, following like this big car accident that put his wife in a wheelchair. He's like super angsty about that. Milo, I don't remember fucking anything about what Milo does, but he's there too. Man, I am trying to remember the junkie's name. I'm just gonna name him. His name's Gabriel. So Gabriel is a heroin addict. I want to say Eve is sleeping with him, but I don't remember clearly. And also, if I don't remember, I just make things up. Like, that's the whole conceit of this game. So I'm going to say Mohinder's sleeping with him because that's a much more pleasant, fun time for me. Like, he's a precog. He's like this very tortured artist kind of guy. I don't know why that was the voice I decided to go with there.
See this? I painted it 3 weeks ago.
He is like basically having like these visions of the future, and he like keeps seeing disasters before they happen, and he's like really like angsty about the fact that like he keeps seeing these things before they happen and they happen anyway. I don't think he is actively doing anything to stop it, but I don't know, he feels bad. Oh yeah, I was trying to remember why Gabriel was important. It's because he has this huge fucking vision quest to give them, which is the tagline of the show was save the cheerleader, save the world.
Save the cheerleader, save the world.
He basically has this vision of Sylar finding and killing Claire and gaining her powers of, you know, physical invulnerability, health regen. She's basically Wolverine.
This girl, the one you've painted here, and there, she's my daughter.
He's basically like, if this happens, if he gets to her, it's over. Like, we will never stop him. He'll be functionally unkillable. And, fuck, what is the fucking plot of the show? Through a series of very convoluted things that happen, he does end up finding her, and like this vision comes true, but they are able to like get there in time and save her. I think Milo specifically does save her. I think Quinto is also pretty instrumental in doing that, but I don't remember. So basically you have these people discovering their powers and then discovering each other, usually inadvertently, like just like running into each other. The cosmos is trying to set them up on a fate date, if you will. It basically like brings all of these individuals together auspiciously to fight Sylar, which is what they do. Over time, you basically like learn the tortured, angsty backstories of like all these people. I mentioned Noah, who is Claire's dad. He's a member of an organization that is like literally hunting these people and like disappearing them. So like for a while you're like not sure if he's a good or a bad guy, and then you find out, you know, he adopted Claire as a baby and he knew she had these powers this whole time, and he like has been helping her hide them and hide from this organization that she doesn't know exists.
There can't be any doubt casting your father. Claire, turn around, cover your ears.
Go deep. Take anything that would lead them to her.
There is a lot of scary shit that happens with Claire. Like, I don't remember the plot of this fucking television series, but I do remember almost everything that happens to Claire. In the very beginning of the show, basically like to show you that she can't die, they have a guy try to rape her. As she's struggling to get away from him, she like impales herself on a like fallen tree branch, I think, and it like spears her like directly through the back of the head. They basically remove it in the morgue, and she is able to heal from that and come back to life and escape. She then proceeds to fucking try to kill him with a truck, which good for her. I wish he fucking died. He doesn't. I don't know why. And then the show tries to make it into a lesson about how she's very naughty and she shouldn't try to kill people. Oh man. And then like there's a time when she almost gets caught by like people from her dad's job, and that's like really fucking intense. There are several times where Sylar like almost gets her. He gets so fucking close. She does like escape him. They do manage to protect her, which means they go into like this kind of grand finale fight with at least one advantage, which is that Sylar can die. At some point, they almost blow up New York. The heroin addict, who dies midway through the season. So much of season 1 is like preordained by like visions that he has had. So they set up a lot of tension by establishing that he's had like these horrible visions that involve people that you know, but you don't know how they play out. The whole time you're like kind of bracing for like this next thing that's supposed to happen, but you don't know how this thing could possibly happen, and they could all be fine. All of these like visions he's had, he either painted or he like wrote in comic books.
자, 복구해.
라스베가스.
올해와 운명이다.
That's how Hero gets involved. Hero is reading these comic books that this guy makes, and he wants to, I think he goes and visits him. I think that's what happened.
Isaac Mendes.
Everybody kind of comes together slowly. Greg Matt ends up adopting this little girl that he saves from a pedophile or something because he can like hear her in the house, and he figures out that she also has these powers.
You are not supposed to be in here.
Please don't hurt me. Please stop. Please don't hurt me.
It's okay. It's okay, you're safe now. Look, I'm a cop. I'm one of the good guys, okay?
You hurt my mom and dad. Please don't hurt me.
I'm not gonna let anybody hurt you.
Molly, I do remember her name. He and Mohinder end up linking up. Nikki figures out Jessica Jessica. Nikki figures out that like this split persona that she has is her twin sister Jessica, who died. I don't remember how, but I assume it was horrible. She also has this very cute child named Micah and is married to a guy who is in prison. He like robbed a bank or something. I do not remember how their storyline comes together or who they meet up with or what is going on with them. I feel like there's one character I'm forgetting who links up with Nikki and I don't remember who it is. Milo and Nathan are kind of their own storyline. Like they are brothers and like there's like a lot of angst and resentment between the two of them, and Milo thinks he's like developing all these superpowers and Milo ends up connecting with Mohinder and Claire. Milo is kind of a main character in a big way, which is why it's sad that I don't remember anything about him and in fact keep forgetting that he's even in the show. And this is like one of, okay, so the end game, they basically like follow Gabriel's instructions for like, you know, what's supposed to happen. It allows them to kind of match Sylar like stroke for stroke, finally. Sylar is dominating for the majority of season 1. Like it takes them a really, really long time to figure out like how to beat him, like even a little bit. Eventually he absorbs this power that is like catastrophically destructively. He can blow up a city. They manage to incapacitate him, but Milo is like this power sponge and he absorbs this power that Sylar has now, which is like that he's a living fucking bomb.
Wait, no! No!
Turns out you're the villain, Peter.
He like starts to like self-destruct and like nobody can figure out like what to do, and he's gonna like annihilate all of New York City. Nathan basically reveals that his power is flight. He can fly. Milo has thought that this was a power that he had for a really long time and just figured out that he like absorbed it from his brother. Nathan, like the whole thing with like all of his angst is like when he was in the car crash, he crashed the car and he escaped unharmed because he literally, it was a convertible and he flew out of the car. It's not funny when you watch it. I promise it's like, it's not what I'm making it up to be. But retrospectively, hilarious. In like this big moment where like they've like forgiven each other. I don't even remember why they're mad at each other, but trust me, they are. He basically takes Milo, who's like self-destructing, and like flies him above the city and they explode. I promise it's dramatic and sad when it actually happens. I'm just imagining it. I'm imagining pitching it in a writer's room. Heroes season 1 is written well enough that like all of this, which is ridiculous, works.
I love you, Nathan. I love you too.
That's the thing I remember the most about Heroes season 1 is that it really works. All of the actors have really good chemistry. They're all really dedicated to their roles. They don't have a lot of screen time because there's like a bazillion of them. So they have to portray their personalities really strongly and well in a very short amount of time, and they do a really good job of it. And their personalities I really remember. Like I can't really remember the plot in great detail, in no small part because there's so much of it, but I remember who these people are. I don't always remember their names, but I do remember like their personalities. Their performances really, really stuck with me, which is I think why it blew my fucking mind that not every single one of these actors blew up after Heroes. Ali Larder, I think her name is, who plays Nikki, is amazing. She's amazing. Zach Quinto deserves the acting chops he gets. Sylar is so terrifying. Claire is a rockin' badass, but she's also really feminine and in a very unapologetic way, which was kind of the first time I had ever encountered that as a young teenage girl, and it like stuck with me. Milo and Nathan, even though I don't even remember if I'm remembering Milo's name correctly, they do have like really defined personalities. Nathan's like really uptight and unforgiving, but also very full of love for the people that he's invested in. He's deeply guilty and remorseful about the fact that he made it out of that car accident fine and his wife didn't. Milo is kind of your average skulking bad boy, but he's also like really heartfelt and sweet. He's really curious about the things that are happening to him, and he's really invested in helping other people for no other reason than to help them. Gabriel is really tortured over his visions. Hiro is incredibly naive and idealistic, but also in a way that's very enduring and heartfelt and sweet. Even Ando, who's like pretty aloof and gets kind of dragged into this inadvertently, he like really cares about his best friend, and he goes to great lengths to keep him and the people that they meet safe. Claire's dad like is incredibly sympathetic. All of these people are like really sympathetic and interesting. Greg Matt is like, I loved him. I loved that, like, you know, he was so empathetic that it literally started to overwhelm him. I could really kind of empathize with that. Heroes does the ensemble so well, not because everybody's storyline is equally compelling, but because everybody is equally compelling. And that's why I need to rewatch season 1 of Heroes. Oh, this wine is bad.